Three, two, one, go.
Hey Jason, how you doing? How you doing?
I am sick as fuck, but I'm good. I'm doing okay.
Yeah,
How
is
are
that
you?
Corona? Is that Corona you've got?
Man, if it was Corona, man, if it was Corona, like, that would be so horrible. Like, all of my kids would have to get tested and shit. No, no.
Yeah.
No, it's just a sore throat and a
Okay,
cough.
okay. Uh,
Um, uh, need to be drinking lots of fluids and stuff
mm-hmm,
and stay
mm-hmm.
warm.
Okay,
And I'll
okay.
be fine. I'll be fine. How
Mm.
are you?
I'm not doing much better than I was last week, but I guess things are gonna change for the better. I hope. I
hmm
hope.
You know what?
Yeah. But, uh-huh.
Sorry, just continue.
So like you're telling me, it's just I guess the main cause for me being down in the dumps is because, like you said earlier, like my sleeping pattern is really hectic. It's really bad. It's really bad, especially with the kids. Like I barely get more than 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, and it's not even a full 4 to 5 hours. It's just like it's always broken down,
Mm.
because she will always wake up in the middle of that. So
Mm.
yeah.
So wait, Ra still wakes up in the middle of the night?
Oh yeah, she does. Yeah, she does regularly, at least 3 or 4 times a night.
And then you have to go and like rock her to sleep.
No, usually she just wants a change of diapers. That's it.
Ah, wait, so she'll
Yeah.
stay awake until you don't change her diapers?
Yep.
Kids are interesting. Babies are interesting.
Yeah. But I don't think it's all kids. I think some kids sleep through the night pretty young. And
Mm-hmm.
even actually, it's strange with Raha, because at some point last year she was sleeping through the night, but then she just started waking up randomly. So I don't know what the reason is.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something we as parents are doing wrong, and we don't quite understand. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah,
Okay, it might be worth looking up.
yep,
I've
yep,
been
definitely.
I've been trying to write things that I'm grateful for every
Mm,
morning,
mm-hmm,
just to add something to my morning routine.
okay.
Because eventually, like, what I've come the realization is, like, I've come down to is that my best days
Mm-hmm,
are the days where the time I wake up
mm-hmm,
and the time I go to sleep, I am in complete mindfulness.
okay.
So if I am completely mindful and like conscious and doing something meaningful when I wake up and when I go to
Mm-hmm,
sleep,
mm-hmm,
that tends to set like a precedence for the next day.
mm-hmm,
It sets a precedence for the following day,
mm-hmm.
as well as like me going into work. So what happens to me during the day, you know?
Okay, I see.
So it just sets me on the right mindset and sets me on the right track, you know?
Mm-hmm,
And then after I do that, I like usually work out too. So now also my body's like physically ready and I feel mentally checked in, ready to like start
mm-hmm,
the day.
mm-hmm.
And it's been feeling really good so far. That I've been trying to clean my room.
Okay.
This leads into our theme today, by the way. So
Okay.
for the longest time, I've never really like bought things for my house. Like I've
Mm-hmm.
tried. I like so cleaning your room, as Jordan Peterson would say, is just it's more than just cleaning your room, right? It's like you have to make it beautiful too. He says that a lot, and if anyone so first of all, for me, like I'm pretty lazy, right? So I've always left my sitting rooms and like my room in a very minimalistic type of way, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that has either been born out of two things. At least when I think about it, it's either been born out of two things. Either I'm just being lazy,
Mm-hmm.
or I like the minimalism and I like open spaces.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really figured out what it is, but it might be actually a bit of both. I don't know.
Yeah, but like the thing with talking about making one room beautiful, right?
Mm,
So the idea here is that you create beauty to the degree in which that you believe something to be beautiful, right?
mhm,
So if minimalism is beauty for you, then you have created beauty in your house, right?
mhm,
I don't think the assumption here is that have art pieces in your house and that's beautiful, because if you have Van Gogh in your house, you
mhm,
might like Van Gogh, but I might think it's not touching me. it doesn't look nice in this particular room, you know.
Hmm. But then,
So I think when he speaks of creating beauty, I think he means creating, adding a piece of your highest ideal into that space you're in, and that could be minimalism for you.
yeah, you're right. And but this is the idea of like you have to go and figure that shit out first of all, right? If you're gonna put whatever your idea of your highest idea of what is beautiful or what best represents, what best expresses your individualism in your room or in your environment, you need to know what that is first of all, right? So there's also like already like a process of going to figure that shit out just from the get-go, right? And that's why I'm like, I just realized like, man, I haven't been doing that really, because I'm much more of a function sort of guy. Like I get in, I'm just like, okay, what do I need? I need this, I need that, I need this, you know, I need a fridge, I need a microwave, I need a screen maybe to watch movies on, and then I'm done, right? The whole make it beautiful thing, it's never been like in my mind, you know, until a girl comes along. The old saying, you know, it takes a woman to make a boy into a man, you know. So now it's like I have to actually try to make it beautiful, because I want it to look good. I want her to be comfortable too in the house, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I'm gonna be trying to doing that, and that leads into what is the theme of this
The
month?
theme of this month is art and psychology. How does art affect your psychology, and how does psychology affect your art?
Okay.
How are the two interrelated? What is the function of art in our society? So on and so forth.
So okay, where do you want to start with this?
So, how does art relate to psychology? That is the first question I want to start with. So, I was looking at various studies and they show that artistic endeavor may reduce stress and health complaints, improve immune function, provide both physical and psychological benefits, and even help people live longer. I did not see how that makes sense. I did not see how, at least for the last part, art helps you live longer. I did not understand that.
Art makes you live longer.
Yes. Now that's the question. How can art make you live longer? I can understand. Okay, so if you're talking to how does art relate to psychology, I understand the psychological benefits of art, right? So I'm going to imagine someone who is a writer, right? A writer. This particular writer is depressed because they have no way to express their internal struggles to people through talking, right? However, through writing, they're able to express to themselves. If the piece they're writing is for an audience of one, and the audience of one being themselves, if they're able to create this piece of art, they're able to break down the internal strife they have and come to terms with, or just simply understand it, right? So I understand how art can benefit psychologically, but physically, I don't quite understand.
Well, you are your mind, right? Like, funny enough, 1 second. Sorry. Funny enough, I was listening to Joko Willink yesterday, right? And he talked about how it was Joko Willink and Jordan Peterson, actually. They had a podcast together recently. So they were talking about how after the age of 25, cognitive ability stagnates and tends to go down.
Yep, I had the same podcast, yeah.
Right? So you heard them talking about how it's like the best way, at least Jordan Peterson said, the best way to stave this off is like by exercising.
Yes.
Which is, everyone's heard it, but it's not necessarily like something that is obviously apparent, because you think, oh, if the mind is a muscle and it atrophies over as you age, right? It atrophies, then you must put exercises in to sort of like mentally make it stronger. And based on that conversation, it was like your cognitive. So you still have the ability to learn. It's just that process is a little bit slower. So you can still learn new things. So when you're mentally like exercising your brain, right? You're doing mental activities. You are learning new things. You're absorbing new information and knowledge, right? But you're working. Like that. The main processing power itself, mental processing power, is still reducing over time. So how do you prevent that? How do you prevent your processing power from like lowering over like the period of your life? It's actually just exercising. So exercising every day will keep you alive longer later on.
And what does this have to do with art? How does this relate to art?
So coming back to art, when people do art is like, I feel like there's this physical, this is like a psycho. What's the word? Physiological sensation when it comes when you do something great. When you express yourself, it's not just only like a psychological activity, right? It's more of like a physiological activity as well. You can do art and you can feel mentally and spiritually free after. And that also like can have an effect on your body, right? The idea here is to show that your mind can affect your body and your body can affect your mind.
Oh yeah, I think we all agree with this. But now, okay, so there's many artists who produce rather bizarre and dark art, right? And some of this art, like to the novice observer, would seem very disturbing. It would be very disturbing, and you'll ask yourself, why would such an artist create such a piece, right? Is this piece really helpful for their cognitive well-being? Is it helpful, not cognitive, but for their psychological well-being? I guess it is helpful for their cognitive well-being.
Yeah, sorry.
Go on.
It's like there's a sense of catharticism.
Catharticism.
Catharticism. I don't know if I'm probably butchering the word, but it's cathartic. Everyone's felt it, right? If you do something, if you put your everything into something, right? You leave like, it feels like you've left a piece of yourself in your work or in whatever you're doing. And that is very specific in art as well. Like, I feel like art is one of the highest forms of that as well. Like, if you really apply yourself and try to like express your mind and what's going on in your consciousness onto that piece of art that you're doing, you leave a piece of yourself there. And you think that leaving a piece of yourself has some form of catharticism that comes with it. So you feel good after you've done like a really good piece of work. And that ends up freeing your mind, right? It makes it feel like there's less noise. You feel lighter after.
So, like, for everyone who's listening, if you have access to the internet, I would like for you to look at the paintings of a man called Francis Bacon. Jason, I would like for you to look at that right now.
How do you spell
that? Francis, Francis, and then Bacon, the way you spell the ordinary bacon.
Like bacon? Like his name is Bacon?
Yeah.
Wow, his name is actually Bacon. Nice. So the former Lord Chancellor.
What?
Am I former Lord Chancellor?
No, Francis, Francis.
Yeah,
and then
Francis Bacon, former Lord Chancellor, first Viscount
okay, so
St. Albans.
Look for right artists at the end, I guess. Then.
Okay. I was wondering. So he was a famous artist. Can you give me an
yes,
explanation?
he was a British. So he was a British painter. He was Irish-born British painter.
Oh, I found him.
And yep, so his work is very unsettling. Let me and not unsettling. It's not the kind of artwork you like to have in your house, right? Yeah, so like his art pieces are not the kind of art piece one would like to have in a house.
Uh-huh.
That's the point. So it's very bleak. His artwork is very bleak, very also very existential, right?
Oh, he
And
reminds me of what's his name? Ito, the Japanese famous horror mangaka.
oh yeah,
Ito. What's his name? I love his work so much too. He made Spiral. It's giving me full Japanese. I can't read kanji. Junji Ito. Junji Ito. Since we're talking about artists, if you're gonna give me this guy, please look at Junji Ito, his artwork. So
okay,
people who don't know, Junji Ito is like, he's like known as like the comic book or manga creator, like one of the best in the horror genre, if not the greatest of all time. Honestly, he's up there basically in the greatest of all time when it comes to like horror mangakas or manga creators. And so many of his works have been adapted to like anime and video game. He's influenced so many people. His work is just it's something, man. Like you just have to. So Junji Ito, so Jun as in Junji, Ito, Ito.
yeah, I'm looking at his work right now. Yeah, I've
He,
never seen any of this before.
this is like you've probably watched like his work is really really famous, like ridiculously famous. I'm talking about like entire movies, games. Like his work has been adapted in many different ways. There's even an anime series which was horrible, by the way, but I'll still mention it. There was an anime series that was made based on his work, and you can just read the manga online if you want to do that, because he does a lot of like it's an anthology series, so he does a lot of random short stories basically. So you can always just pick it up and drop it whenever you want, like literally like read it in like 5 minutes, and then a lot of short stories. There are a few stories that he's written over a long period of time. Like Spiral is his most famous work. That was like over, I think it was like 60, 70 chapters. So he has written longer stories, but he's known for his short stories. And yeah. Anyway, sorry. So let's start with Mr. Francis Bacon.
So like looking back at this guy Francis Bacon, I realized that yeah, like I said, most of his work is pretty bleak. It's not so what he has his images are usually like crucifixions, portraits of popes, self-portraits, and also portraits of close friends. And like there's one image that really struck me. It's called "Death on a Toilet." Death on a toilet. Like if you go to Google again, type in Francis Bacon plus death on a toilet.
I like his art.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting art, but it's not the kind of artwork you like to have in your house. You're just before you're talking about having a woman in your house, you wouldn't want to to come and see this in your house, right? It's like,
She'll
dude,
think I'm,
are
yeah.
are you okay? Are you okay?
Oh, dude,
Yeah, like
no, Death on a Toilet is legit though. Especially
right,
this one. This
right.
one. Let's see this one. What's this one? Tragic Vision of Mankind. What's this called? Is this Death on a Toilet? No, it's called something else. Birth, Sex, Death. Birth, Sex, Death. I really like that one. That's something I would buy and actually keep it in my house. Birth, Sex, Death. So his artwork is like, if you want to talk about what it's like to exist, is existing comes with a lot of things, right? It's like a bundle package. It's not only just happiness and joy and companionship and family and friends that you experience throughout your own life, right? Everyone knows there's a whole heap of tragedy and sadness that comes with existence, right? And some of that tragedy comes with darkness. And I feel like one of the most darkest places we know is human consciousness, Like human beings can go into places that like are just so dark that
yeah, there's a case to be made for the artist whereby the artist is known to traverse to see layers of both what we would call the real world, and to touch into this farther into the symbolic world than the average human being, right?
That's
And to
true.
traverse into the symbolic world is to walk in the darkness, is to walk in chaos. And the case here to be made for the artist is that some of the best artists, some of the most idealized artists, or some of the artists who have had some of the most idealized and iconic pieces, whether it's in music, in graphics, in writing, in movie making, they have all been psychologically disturbed to one degree or another, right? There's a madness that comes with the genius, right?
The madness that comes with
Like
genius.
the flip side to the genius is a touch of madness, right?
To like you said, to navigate through that chaos and through like those rough winds of consciousness, right? It's almost like you have to like swim deep in your own ocean, the ocean of your own consciousness, and pull something out of it or make something of it. And that thing that you make, or that thing that you make from the deep consciousness of your mind, from the deep like parts of your mind, has to make sense to other people. It's amazing that we can make art and people understand what you're doing in the first place, right? Because art is almost like sometimes art is so deeply personal, you would think it's like written in your own personal language, right? A language that only you would understand.
But like at least with writing, right? With poetry, with novels, with short stories, the thing is that no matter how deeply rooted, like the thing with writing is that if you read someone's work, and like you said, even though it's so deep rooted in their own personal experience, when you read that work, you're always going to find, you're not always, but you might find something that reminds you of something that you have been through, right? Because like there's no human experience that is unique, right? Falling in love is not unique, right? Losing someone you love is not unique.
Yep. It's the totality of your whole experience that is unique, not the
exactly
sad individual moments. Those individual moments are not unique.
Exactly. But now the artist tries to describe the individual moment in the most beautiful, extravagant, magical, fantastical way, right? And maybe you yourself saw these things when you're going through this singular moments, right? You saw what the artist saw, you felt what the artist felt, but you had no words to describe what you're going through. But when you read the work of the artist, you realize, yes, this is exactly what I was going through.
So they're able to manifest ideas, things, and experiences that you in your own mind know are true.
Yes.
You might have seen it yourself, or you might have seen somebody go through it, but you've never been able to like manifest it or talk about it.
Yes.
Or articulate it, you know, whether it's in words or whether it's writing it down. And that's the thing about consciousness. Sometimes it's like it can be so deep that it's only when the art hits you, when you look at the art, it rings, it lights up something in your mind, right? And I think that's why people get goosebumps, right? Sometimes when they look at art or when they hear a good piece of music, it resonates with them on such a individual level, and it's only in those moments that you realize, like, damn, this music is like, it feels like it's speaking to you.
Exactly.
It's speaking directly to you. And that's why people cry sometimes when listening to music, like a beautiful piece of music, when looking at something that like really triggers some masterpiece of art. People cry.
And it does trigger you because why not? Why shouldn't it? You know, the real question here is that why isn't everyone brought to tears by artwork, right? Like
it's funny because art is like, if you want to talk about like language, art is like up there with like the oldest of languages. It has its evolution. It's been here for such a long time. It's going through multiple iterations. We now have multiple forms of art that we know of. And I think we've made art of almost everything, you know? Yet when we teach or talk about art, it's almost looked down upon in, maybe not now, but like in school, you know. From my
Mm, mm,
youngest ages, it's been looked down upon a lot, you know.
mm.
Like art is that thing that won't get you anywhere, and like,
Oh, of course, yes, yes, yes. Because we live in a capitalist world, we're looking at capital gain. Like,
with
there's no like, it's very hard for you to make money as a writer or as a painter, as opposed to be an accountant or a lawyer or a doctor, right?
which is funny because art is like the most celebrated things we have as a civilization, if not the most
It
celebrated.
actually, it is the most celebrated. It is the most
I
celebrated thing.
think it's one of the most celebrated things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of
Like,
something. Like, when I say art, I'm talking about like, it's not just drawings and poetry. It's like music is art, you know? Filmmaking is art. Games are art. Like, these are the things that we go, movies, like Hollywood movies are art, you know? Like, so it's like,
mm,
these are things that we all go crazy for. So for us to like keep on looking down on art and not talk about it in a very serious way, the same way we talk about psychology and stuff like that, it's just so weird to me.
it's not so weird considering the society we live in. It's not so weird, right? Because like, you would want your kids to be financially stable, to live financially stable lives, right?
Okay,
And
okay.
you know, for them to live this kind of life, painting probably isn't the way to go. I mean, it can work, but the odds of you succeeding as a painter are very, very slim, right? It's like you, yeah, okay. So you have to be both very, very, very good at painting, very, very good at communicating your ideas out to the world, and also very, very lucky in order to be successful as a painter, right? But to be successful as a doctor, all you need to do is go and study medicine, right? So people, I think most people will encourage their kids to be doctors as opposed to painters, just because of this simple fact: you're going to have a more financially secure future if you're a doctor, and
All
it
right,
does make sense.
I guess it makes sense in this. Like, it makes sense if you think about it in a very what, metaphysical? Is metaphysical the word? If you look at it in a very like results results based,
Yeah, result oriented.
result oriented, or if we're
Mm,
being very pragmatic,
mm,
art
mm,
doesn't, like, it's not inherently apparent what a piece of art, let's say you painting a piece of painting, let's say you paint something, right? It's not inherently apparent how many things or how many people or how much value can be drawn from that piece of painting if you drew it and left it in a museum somewhere, right? You might have sold it for a
mm,
lot of money. It created value for you as the artist. Let's say you're a famous artist, right? So it created value for you personally, but it's not inherently apparent like how much value society can draw from it, right? But
mm,
if you think of like, if you became a famous doctor or like a very good doctor instead, how many lives have you saved?
mm, mm. Okay.
It's very clear to see like, oh, you've worked on this patient, this patient, this patient. You've brought like health and wellness to all of these people's lives, right? So you can literally
Mm-hmm.
count how many lives you've like given value to as a doctor, you know?
Okay.
And that's the same thing with an engineer and a scientist. Even in what, engineer, scientist, lawyer too. A lot of these like jobs are like, especially in a world where we're like, there's 7 fucking billion of us now, right? So it's like, you need more doctors because there'll be more people to get sick. You need more lawyers because there's just gonna be more problems. We're gonna be fighting each other a lot more in general. So there'll probably be more crimes being, there'll be more crimes being committed and more like disputes in general as the population goes higher and higher, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a deep need for these things, and it's a very easy way of tracking how good and how well these jobs and what kind of value they can give back to society. But with an artist, you know, unless you're like this big ass artist or like a big filmmaker or musician, it's like, if you're on the like the smaller side of things,
Mm.
if you made a piece of painting, what has that really done for the world, you know? At least that's what somebody would ask you. What have you really done for yourself? What have you really
Mm,
done for other people, rather?
mm, mm, mm,
So
mm. What have you done for the people? I guess
You've just,
bringing people beauty is one thing that you've done.
but we've just talked about how we live in a society that doesn't necessarily value that.
Mm, mm.
Capitalism favors. I don't know if it's capitalism. I wouldn't say capitalism favors, because the famous the famous saying in Game of Thrones is like a king. What was it? A king. Oh, can I remember
Mhm.
this quote? A king, aristocrat, and no, wait. I need to get that, because that'll lead into, like, it's a very important visualization for what I'm gonna try and say. Anyway, while I'm looking at that, you can look at Junji Ito a bit. I highly recommend him for people who. You have to be into art, though. I mean, not art. You need to be into horror. Have you taken a look
Okay.
of his work? What do you think, Oscar?
I have to like dive deeper into it. Maybe look at some of his manga and stuff. But from what I'm seeing, it seems decent. It seems interesting. At least, at the very least, let me start it just by saying that it seems interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say go any further right now because I have no knowledge of his work. So are you still looking for the quotes?
Yeah. So I apologize for people who are Game of Thrones fans. They might kill me for this one, but it's something like this, right? So you have a king, aristocrat, and a priest sitting at a table. Only one of them can walk away alive. There's a swordsman in the room with them. So there's 4 of them, right? So they each have to make the case to the swordsman why he should kill the other 2 people.
Okay.
The priest promises him everlasting life in the afterlife. The aristocrat promises him influence. The king promises him gold like he's never seen before. Who do you think wins? Or who do you think
One
has
more time.
who do you think has the power in the room? All of the power.
So a king, an aristocrat, and a priest.
Yeah. This isn't the direct quote, but I'm trying to, like, it's kind of close enough.
Who do you think has all the power? I will assume the priest.
How would you say the priest?
Because he can, depending on whether or not the warrior or swordsman you said believes, he can promise him eternal life.
And that's what you think is power?
Yeah, depending on whether or not you believe. If you don't believe, it's nothing. It's useless. It's pointless. But if you believe, that's quite a lot.
And what you said makes sense. But if the man happened to be a very, let's say, an atheist, he would just, like, the priest is definitely gone, right?
That's why I say, like, if he believes. If he doesn't believe, it makes no sense. So what is it? What was it?
So when I thought about this a bit more, they end up explaining the quote in the parable in further detail, right? But the point is that you can make a case for all of them. That's what I realized. And if you can make a case for all of them, then it's like, it's a subjective thing. So then it depends on who you are. So it depends on who you are as a person and where you think, what is your idea of power? And that was the ultimate teaching, that power resides where people think power resides.
Okay.
So going back to this, right? It's like beauty, art, and value, right? In our society. Value as a society, if we decide that art is the ultimate good in terms of what you can bring into our world and share with other people, then tomorrow artists, there'll be like a huge explosion of artists like that. But if we decide, like, hey, being an artist doesn't really make sense, you should be a doctor instead, then you'll see that pull or push to that side, you know? Society will literally reconfigure itself to fit that micro thesis, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. It does.
At least that's from what I've seen and what I've like learned from like listening to other people, you know.
Mhm.
I might be wrong, but that's what I've seen. These are my own observations. And yeah, I'm just hoping that art is actually such a huge field at the moment, you know. We didn't even talk about what art is, by the way.
We'll get into that, but first of all, I would like for us to tackle this idea of how art influences your mind, and vice versa.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Like
vice
Jason,
versa.
you create, you do graphic designs, right?
Yeah, I'm a bored individual, bored and
Yeah,
creative.
yeah, you're more than creative, brother. Joko Willinko.
Yeah.
So what's your process? What's your process when you create?
So I need to be inspired first.
Okay.
I need to be
Okay.
in a mode. Let's just
Mhm.
call it. Oh, what do you call it? Let's just call it the art mode. The art mode for me is like I need to be so inspired by something, whether it's like looking at other people's artwork, whether it's listening to a good piece of music, whether it's talking to my friends and my family, feeling loved, you know? There needs to be this swelling of feelings and emotions in my mind or in my body. And I feel like when it reaches a certain point, it's like I need to get that feeling out somewhere. There needs to be then an explosion, you know?
I see.
So like if you're working yourself from 0, 10, 20%, like it's going up. I don't know if people have watched Mob Psycho, but that's basically like how I feel sometimes. So when it reaches 100%, it's like, oh my god, I gotta do something, you know? So I just open up something like Illustrator real quick and I do something, you know? Whatever's in my mind, I just get it out all out there, you know? And then after I just feel so good, I feel like relief. That's what I talked about. It's like a psychological sort of relief, but it's also physical. Like I feel good after. I feel more relaxed, and I feel like again my mind, the waves of my consciousness, have become a lot more calm after I've done some art.
So like for you to create this art, for you to bring this art into the world is akin to you maybe like wanting to go to the bathroom. Like you have this urge and desire, like I need to do it now, I need to go now, right? And once it's out, you're at ease.
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. So I'm describing my most inspired moments. When I worked a bit as a graphic designer. And at that point, there were many times where I was like, I don't really feel like doing this, you know? Or like somebody would want a boring, what I would consider a quote unquote boring design, you know? I just want my name in a signature font. That's it. You know?
Okay.
And that to me is like literally like you can do that in like 5-10 minutes. So that shit is just so boring. It's just like I don't even want to do it, you know? It just seems so mundane. And through those times I'd have to force myself, you know? And in those sort of moments, if I was to say like in terms of percentage, I would say it's almost, oh wow, that's actually really hard to say. Like now I'm having a lot more inspired moments. I would say it's like 70-30, where I feel 70% of the time I feel inspired and I feel like I have to get this down, and 30% where it's just like I have nothing else better to do, so I'm sort of like forcing myself to do it. Before, when I was doing it as a graphic designer, it was almost like 50-50. But that's because I was doing it every day, right? So when it was like a huge part of my life, it didn't feel like that urge to like get things out there was reduced or was dampened a bit. You know?
Okay.
But yeah, I think what you said, going to the toilet, was like a perfect description of what it feels like for me personally. It's a physical need, it's a psychological need, physiological need. Like
Physiological need. Okay.
I need to do this.
Yeah. That's funny. Like, it's funny how you say it's physiological, but still, I always imagine that art comes. It's a mental state of being, right? To create is a mental state. Unless, even dance is an art form. But I always believe that it always starts from the mind first.
Actually, that's so wonderful. It is an art form. Dance is another one that people have looked down upon. Sorry.
Yeah.
I have a pet peeve with like how art is viewed in society. We'll let that go for now. Yeah, continue.
Yeah, I always view art as coming from the mind, right?
Yeah.
But so everything comes from the mind, and the mind is, there's your own consciousness and there's a collective consciousness. The collective consciousness are things that you've learned from society, right? Just being raised as a human being in this world, right? Mm-hmm. And your own consciousness are the things that are how you process the experiences you have had. And when you create art, it's kind of a coalescence of the two. So that's why I always tend to imagine that art is first of all psychological and not physical. But then when you say that it feels physiological to relate to create this art, that's I've just never thought about it that way.
So what is it like for you, Dan?
So I write, and the thing when I write, when I write poetry, I always, the thing that makes me want to write a poem is having one line in my head. I always just have one line in my head, and I feel like that first line needs to be put down on paper. And once I put the first line on paper, whatever comes, I don't know, right? Like whatever comes isn't coming from me; it's coming from somewhere else. That's what I feel like, because I can have an idea. Like the line can be anything. The line can be, I'm sitting down making a podcast. That can be the first line, the only line I have in my head, right? And something tells me, Oscar, just go and write this line down. Just write this line down, yeah? Mm-hmm. And once I write that first line down, everything else comes on its own. I'm not even thinking about it anymore. It just comes. I don't really feel relief afterwards. I don't really feel much of anything. I just feel like I'm done. I'm finished, you know?
So for you, it's like the same way a priest or a prophet will go on some spiritual trip and say like, oh, and then when they come back, they have like a new word of gospel or the word of
okay.
Someone had talked to them.
Yeah, that sounds very mystical and fantastical, but yeah, that could be, that's a good analogy for it.
You enter a certain state and it just comes to you.
I mean, it's not really a state I'm entering. Like I am aware of what I'm doing. I'm just not aware of what I will create. You know. I know I'm writing a poem. I'm not writing a short story, but I don't know what it like. I don't know I don't quite understand or have foresight into what the creation will be.
It's like what you said before. You're walking into that darkness of the chaos of your mind.
Yes.
Your consciousness.
Yes. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it, I guess.
When you come back, you've come back with that piece, a piece of something. A piece of that chaos. But that piece of chaos, you've turned it into something else. And now you want to show it to the rest of us.
Yeah, but for most of the things I do create, I don't show anyone, you know? Just keep it to myself. Like talking about an audience of one, sometimes I just keep the poems for myself.
That's how all artists start, though.
Yeah.
They do it for themselves in the beginning. Usually. You know? They're just drawing for themselves. There's something that doing art does something for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to like it in order to get like really good at it, right?
Of course.
So a lot of people, the famous ones, they just,
but then like back to what I was saying.
Yeah.
Back to what I was saying earlier about like artists having a touch of madness in them, yeah. So I had this idea that So last year when I was drinking quite a lot and I was writing, writing never felt quite good. Actually, it felt kind of like a punishment. Like I just have to do this thing to get rid of this feeling I have inside of me, right?
So it was therapy.
Yeah, it was kind of I wasn't say therapeutic, but it felt like working out. I don't enjoy it, but I know I have to do it.
Hmm.
Do you understand?
You said it. You compared it to like working out.
Yes, it's like working out. I don't enjoy doing it, but I know I must do it,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes. 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 You're sacrificing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I've been feeling about writing, especially last year. Like at the height of my drinking, it felt that way. Like I just have to go out and write this thing. I just have to write,
Mm.
and so at least back then it felt like a lot of my art was influenced by my drinking, right? And which is funny because right, this year since I stopped drinking, at least for me personally, I feel like my poetry has lost some of its touch, some of its magic.
Oh no, the old topic of drugs and what and art, drugs and art.
Yes, yes, yes. But
That
I'm not.
that's
Yeah, I'm not saying
that's
I want to drink to create better art, but I do. At least when I read the poems from last year, it's like wow. The poems from last year really packed a punch. They really packed a fucking punch. This year, it feel like I'm working with kiddie gloves. Like what the fuck is happening to my poetry?
now this one is an old conversation that many people have had in a lot of different parts of art. You know,
Yeah.
so like I think the most famous one, the most famous example we can use is music. Rock stars and drugs, man. Like if you have a rock star that took drugs in his younger years and compare it to when he got sober, there's a clear
Mm,
change in his music, right? I'm not gonna
of
talk
course,
about
of
like
course.
whether his work when he was younger was objectively better than his work when he was in his older years, right? I'm not gonna talk about that.
Mm,
But
mm,
there will always be a change, for better or
mm,
worse.
mm,
Some people will be like, "Oh, his
mm,
older work is more mature. I like it better." Some people will be like, "No, his younger work was edgy. It was raw. It was straight to the point. Boom. I like that." There's just so many examples of people saying like, "Man, this artist was just so different when he was on drugs," right? I think
yeah.
the first thing that comes to mind is Eminem, right? Eminem, when Eminem was like on pills and when he just dropped in the scene in like the late 90s, early 2000s, the dude was just rapping in a way no one had ever seen before, you know? He was totally different from everyone else. He looked
Mm,
different, he rapped different. His art was very, very like it was very like not is it controversial? Yeah, yes, it was controversial, but what's the word I'm looking for? It was trying to provoke people. It was very
mm, mm,
provoking type of things he
mm,
was doing, right? And the way he avoided it as an artist was that he, like a lot of artists, not a lot of artists, but a common way of dealing with it is creating an alter ego. So there was Eminem or Marshall Mathers, and then there was
mm,
Slim Shady. Slim Shady was the crazy,
mm,
psychotic, twisted version of himself who was like
mm,
saying "fuck bitches," "I want to fucking kill gay people" and stuff like that.
mhm,
So
mhm,
he
mhm,
creates this escape for him, and we as an audience know that it's a sort of escape, and it allows him to explore his much more darker thoughts without criticism.
mhm, mhm.
And there's a clear difference between Eminem when he was in drugs in his younger years and then when he got sober now.
So I will say that the reason why an artist will depend on drugs to create beautiful art is because prior to the prior to the introduction of drugs into the artist's life, I believe they're already suffering with some mental disorder, maybe some past trauma, whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever is going on, there was something there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when the drugs were introduced, whether it's drugs, alcohol, anything, I mean, alcohol is also a drug, but when the drugs were introduced, the drug kind of silenced the noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they no longer have this mental chatter going on. So now they can create. And when they create under the influence of drugs, the mental chatter comes out with clarity onto paper or into your movement if you're a dancer,
Isn't that
or
like
into your voice when you're singing. And then when you get off the drugs, you can't just get off the drugs and start creating beautiful art. You have to get off the drugs and learn how to live without the drugs and how to express yourself without the drugs before you can start creating again.
Isn't there like a theory? It's found out that some of our ancient ancestors used to consume mushrooms.
The stone ape theory?
Yeah, they used to consume a lot of herbs and plants for nutrition, and some of those plants happen to be mushrooms, So the theory is that those mushrooms might have caused the first person to look at a wall and try to like draw on it. There's much more to the theory, but I'm just simplifying it,
Well, the stone ape theory is a bit different. The stone ape theory suggests that when we were hominids, like when we were something less than human back on the African savannas, those hominids used to eat whatever they could find, right? And when they ate the mushrooms, they were able to become introspective for the first time, right? To be aware of the eye.
They were able to see better. They were able to perceive better. They were looking at the environment in a different way. It gave them this mental
and even looking at themselves for the first time.
Like
right?
how
So it's
Adam and Eve ate the fruit.
Exactly. And that's the idea. Yeah, that's the stone ape theory.
And that is, but it goes to show you how far we've come with drugs.
Yeah, but
as a race.
But I think that's different though, because it's like eating mushrooms, ingesting mushrooms, and becoming almost excessively aware of your consciousness, excessively aware of yourself and your place in the universe is different than being drunk and writing poetry, right?
Oh no, but it's like the idea is that we've always been being put under the influence of drugs. We've always put ourselves under the influence of drugs, right? Drugs have always been there. Yeah, and it seems like there's always been specific moments where being under the influence of certain drugs has allowed us to be more free. And in the realm of art, that feeling like you're more free, or whether, again, I'm not going to argue whether you are more free. I'm just like, that feeling of being more free always allows you, like, again, it gives you that clarity, like what you were talking about. And it goes back way back. Like, I don't know, there's so many examples. Like reggae artists with weed, or hip hop artists with like cannabis, If you go back further enough, like the Native Americans, whenever they do whenever they're doing like their religious dances and like chants, they would always like hotbox. Literally, it's like hotbox with a bunch of like plants and psychedelic plants, and they would go on this, what they would call like a spiritual trip, what they would consider like a spiritual journey in your mind. And there's just so many other, like shamanistic and what's the other word? Shamanistic. I guess spiritual in general. There's a lot of spiritual like rituals and dances that we've had throughout many religions that have incorporated drugs in some way. Art is just an extension of that, man. I feel like art is just like another activity where we're just like, drugs might help us do it better.
Drugs might help us do it better. Yeah. I don't want to agree with that right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as a recovering addict, it's like, no, that's not something you want to. Well, I feel like you can accept it though. You can just accept it for what it is and still go like, but you don't. Again, it just makes things easier. It doesn't like stop you from creating good art still.
It makes okay, that's true. Yeah, there's this very interesting story about the Buddha. I don't know if it's true, but it's an interesting analogy. And the story is the Buddha goes into a village, right? And in the village, he meets a man who says he's a monk, And the monk tells the Buddha he's been practicing this a certain kind of lotus sutra that allows him to finally walk the water from this side to the island in the middle of the lake, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Buddha says, "Why did you have to do that? There's a boat that costs only 1 penny." You know, so, it's like
Isn't that
land,
like
yeah.
isn't that like a story or like one of the myths? Is it a myth?
Yeah, it's a myth. I don't know. Of course, it's not a true story. I don't know if it's a true story. I don't think it is because I don't think anyone was working on water in the past. But the point here is that people spend all their lives learning how to create the most beautiful art, and some dude somewhere just takes some LSD, and all of a sudden he's the greatest artist of all time. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm like that's possible. How many of
yeah,
these people are stoned? How many of these filmmakers are stoned
yeah.
when
Like,
they're
and
writing their scripts and like or when they're writing stories,
I
whatever
mean,
story.
imagine Lil Wayne, like for
Oh,
as far as Lil Wayne, he's just constantly high. Is he even sober? Snoop Dogg as well. Is he even sober? Does he even know
like
this? Like,
have you seen the Lil Wayne documentary? There's this one Lil Wayne documentary from like 2012 or 2011
Mhm,
showing
mhm,
his like just it's you're basically in like the back showing behind the curtains of like his tours and like this was
mhm,
like when Lil Wayne was like really at his peak, honestly.
mhm,
So you're
mhm,
seeing like his work ethic and stuff like that. The guy was living in his tour bus while he was on
mhm,
tour, so that makes sense. But the guy had a suitcase that he was carrying everywhere. He was
mhm,
carrying it to his hotels, to his plane. The suitcase was a
mhm,
portable mic with like a
mhm,
fucking recorder.
mhm,
And he would just sometimes get so high and he would be
mhm.
chatting with some motherfuckers and he'll just stop and go like, I need to record right now. He'll just bring the suitcase out and he'll just go into another room and just set up the portable mic and just start rapping immediately, He would do this in the
Right.
plane, he would do this in the hotel. He used to carry around a guitar too sometimes.
Mm, mm.
And it'll be like, man, you can talk about this guy's rapping style. You can talk about how his like some of his raps are like just not that complex or too oversimple or too simplistic, right?
Mm.
But like his work ethic was like there, and you could see it in the documentary. It was just an interesting part. Like it was just something you'd never expect from Lil Wayne.
So he's the guy who actually learned how to walk on water, right?
Walk on water.
Like according to the story for the Buddha, he went all the way to learning how to walk on water just to get to the island in the middle of the lake.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
also
yeah.
for him, it's like I remember, like I can't remember his childhood completely, but when he talked about like his past and shit like that, he said some traumatic shit happened to him in the past,
Mm, 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 mm,
and he's he's the kind of person who said like, "This is the way I live now." Like when he talks
mm.
about like him sipping on what was the cough syrup thingy that they like
Lean,
the lean,
lean.
yeah, the purple drink.
Yeah,
He talks about
yeah,
purple drink is like, this is how I live. I'm gonna die like this,
yeah.
because the guy is like literally says he's just accepted that he can't function as a sober human being.
Mm. Yeah, like, do you want to be that kind of person? Do you want to be that way?
Lil Wayne had like even by the way he was talking, he had demons, man, some serious demons, and I'm happy to have lived a good enough life where I don't need drugs, man. I don't need
Mm-hmm.
drugs to cope with living
Mm,
because being needing drugs to cope with living is one thing. It's
mm-hmm.
always the addiction part that's just always tragic to me. How many people are functioning like drug abusers and like don't let it affect their normal day-to-day lives or their friends and family?
Most people are like that. Most people are like
Most
that.
people are like that. I feel like there's
Yeah.
always okay, maybe most
Em-
people you might be right, but there's always that danger of like all it
Think
takes
about
is
this.
to go over that line a bit and
Think
they
about
can
this, Jason.
cause
Think
everything to
about this.
fall down, you know?
Most people drink alcohol without it causing a problem in their lives. Most people smoke cigarettes without causing a problem in their lives. most people drink coffee.
Well,
Because it causes their
until they
eyes.
die later on in life, that is.
I mean, whether you want to use the drugs, you're gonna die, Jason. That's not the point. The point is how is it affecting your life? How is it affecting you while you're living, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think people who become addicts, not for all substances, but for some substances, are already genetically predisposed to be addicted.
Something, sure.
Yes, yes. Because if alcohol made everyone addicts, then there will be a billion a billion alcoholics in the world. I don't think there are a billion alcoholics in the world.
The
There will be
famous,
more than a billion. Yeah.
the famous. Games creates mass murderers, man. If like first person shooters made mass murderers, man, you'd
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
lot more mass murderers, a
Exactly,
lot more
exactly.
school shootings, man. You don't know how many people are playing these first person shooters, so like
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that doesn't make sense. So yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
so I think people are simply genetically predisposed, and it's funny that it seems to me as though all the artists seem to have a problem with drugs, seem to have a problem with some substance. Like it's maybe that touch. It's like being touched by an angel was too much, mommy. Being touched,
No, no, but
the
what you
angel
said,
touched
but what
the
you, s-
angel touched me in a bad place. The angel touched me in a bad place.
but what you said was right. Like you need to be a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
There needs to be something a little bit off about you in order to transverse that
Yeah.
chaotic world, the world of the chaos of the consciousness, and then to
Mm-hmm.
come back with a organized piece of art that you
Mm-hmm.
formed from that chaos. You need to be a little bit crazy. You can't be a normal, like a completely sane, noble, sober human being. I don't think it works.
I like I swear to God, Jason, all the artists I've met in my life, all of them have a problem with substances.
You
All
need
of
to.
them.
It's same thing with comedians. You need to be a little bit fucked up, a little bit
Yeah.
crazy, in order to like create good artwork. I really do believe that. You can't just be a normal human being who's always kind, a little bit selfless, just a family guy. I have 3 kids. Like you
I
can't
mean,
be like that. You can't be
I'm
like that.
sure I'm sure there's some who are like that, but that's the
No,
minority.
no,
That's the
no. No one knows what they're doing, man. These are people who have artwork that people will never see. I swear to God. Like maybe okay, I'll be fair. There might be one guy who's completely normal to the
yeah.
book, and he has good artwork.
Yeah.
That guy is the exception. Most people are fucked up. Most people who are good at art are really fucked up in some way or some form. Anyway, that is actually the end of the talk. I like we're over the 1 hour mark,
Mm.
but the conversation was really good. I really liked it, and I was getting really into it. So, when are we getting a guest? What is to come,
Uh,
Oscar?
we will get a guest either next week or the week after that, and the guest will be Nails Nathan. Before we proceed, before we close this podcast, I'd like to direct all of you to Nails Nathan's website, which is nailsnathan.com. NailsNathan.com. And Nathan is a visual artist, and I will discuss with him on how we will record this, whether it's through Discord or we should meet in person and record. Yeah.
Yeah, you
So just
guys.
go and check out his work. Check out his work. It's really insanely creative work. Like he does this thing where if you go to his Instagram page, he does this thing where he goes to Starbucks, buys a cup of coffee and draws something creative, something insanely funny or just fantastical on the coffee cups. So just go and check that out. It's really interesting.
So just one more time. What's the website again?
Nails Nathan, NailsNathan.com.
Oh, he got he got a .com.
Yep. So we will put the link. We'll put the link on our description, and please, guys, go and check that out so you can know what to expect of our first guest ever. Our first guest ever.
I am looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone else is looking forward to that too. And with that bombshell, it's time to end the podcast. Thank you so
Goodbye,
much,
listeners. Thank you for
listeners.
listening.
Yeah, and thank you, Oscar. Bye bye.
Bye bye, Jason.
Bye bye.